All right, welcome everybody to episode 2 of the Near Mint Hockey Card Podcast. I'm Elan Dubrofsky, joined just like last week by Ryan Krieg. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, every week. So happy to get back into this. I've been thinking about it since last episode, and got a really interesting episode today. We're going to get into some playoff news, some just like everything that's going on in the NHL, and then we're going to talk about some rookie mistakes for hockey card investing.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Like, we made a big Trello board of all the different topics we want to cover, and that's the one we decided on today. Mistakes that people generally make when they're collecting hockey cards. And I'll be very interested to hear what you have to say, Ryan, because I'm still pretty new. I started a spreadsheet of all of the cards I've bought since I've started collecting, and I have one column that's like the month, I didn't want to just keep track of like the specific day, and every single one is still September 2020. So I'm excited to start buying my first October 2020 cards. But I also, by the way, had my first sale of a new card that I bought. So last week I talked about the Gretzky card, which did end up selling. Gretzky rookie. I don't own it anymore. It's out of my hands. So we'll see if that was a mistake. It was a KSA rated 4, and I sold for $1,200 to help fund this new set of buying. And then just recently, so let's get into the podcast. So the plan for the podcast is, and I think every week we're going to sort of talk about random stuff, shoot the shit a little bit, and then get into our main topic, which again, this week is going to be mistakes that people make. But the Stanley Cup finals are over. I decided to unload my Jamie Benn Young Guns that I had bought just a couple weeks earlier. I got it for around 16. I bought it in a batch, so I sort of like averaged it all out. And I think I'm going to say I spent around 16, 17, sold it for 27 on eBay. So I'm happy with that profit.
Yeah, and eBay has a cool deal on right now where they're not taking a cut of our profits. So go September.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is kind of a nice tip. You have until the end of September to list up to 200 things without eBay taking a slice.
I didn't realize, because I did get a slice taken. I guess that was the PayPal that I got sent after. So normally when I sell something on eBay, I'm going to both get charged by eBay and by PayPal, even though they're owned by the same company.
We're going to have to figure that one out. Because I haven't gotten my payments because they're holding them because I'm a new seller. So I haven't been able to see the whole math yet.
That'll be in the list of mistakes, right? Make sure you have an understanding of how much of the selling price you're actually going to get before deciding if it's worth it to sell for a certain amount.
Yeah, so I think it's about 90%. So you have to kind of think about, if you buy a card for $10, it has to go up enough that when you sell it again, you're not losing money based on that 90% that you actually get.
Right, yeah. The Jamie Benn was more just, I bought it kind of thinking, basically this was like the middle case, right? I was thinking best case is he continues the run he was on before the finals, where he was leading the Stars in scoring. And what if he kept it up and they ended up winning the Conn Smythe? Right. Then all of a sudden I was going to maybe sell it for 50, who knows what it could have been worth. And he ended up sort of flaming out in the finals a little bit, kind of disappeared. But I'm happy that, the raise from the playoffs still made up for it. I was happy to unload it because I think Ben, his value now is probably the highest it'll ever be. I know we talked last week about maybe he gets into the Hall of Fame one day, maybe, but I think more likely he's just going to end up disappointing poolies next year, and people will just dislike him more and more. And the Stars probably won't match the run that they went on this year. So then he'll just disappoint Stars fans, and that'll be the end of Jamie Benn being an exciting hockey card to own.
Yeah, it's really interesting though. I also went out and got a Ben and I got a Hedman, and I didn't sell either of them, but I was watching their values go up, and I think you could still profit off the Ben, but the Hedman went up pretty good. I even got it, I think, as you were saying, at beginning of September for about $30, and now nice. You said yesterday one sold for what, 55?
Yeah, I was tracking it. It was really fun, actually. As soon as the finals ended, I went on eBay and just started watching a bunch of Young Guns auctions for the players that were involved in that final game. And yeah, Hedman definitely is selling for a lot. Hedman's the kind of guy, though, that he might still go up in value, right? He could theoretically win the Conn Smythe again next year or win the Norris. He's one of the best defensemen in the league right now. And he's almost I wouldn't say for sure, but I feel like he's on track to be a Hall of Famer also. And obviously winning this Conn Smythe has helped. So yeah, I'm not as worried about holding on to
No.
Hedman for the long term. Like he's a real star defenseman in the league. And Ben like was a star, but he's sort of fading away, like not so
Yeah.
gracefully, I guess.
Yeah, and same is true with Braden Point, who we talked about last podcast, who I also had a card up that I kind of overvalued the cards, hoping that, if these guys won the Conn Smythe, maybe they would go crazy. Um, but I have no problem holding on to a Hedman or a Point, or if you had a Kucherov, because those guys are on the best team in hockey, and I don't see that changing in the next few years. Not worried about holding on to those cards at all.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, it's actually interesting. Just for general hockey talk, we were talking on the Keeping Carlson Discord, which is this other podcast that I do about fantasy hockey, about how apparently Joe Pavelski was supposed to, like, he had the choice between going to Tampa or
Mm-hmm.
going to Dallas, and I feel like Tampa really lucked out because like Pavelski had a great playoffs for sure, but like he signed a long-term contract, and what you're saying about Tampa being able to potentially be a contender for still like a few years to come, I think a big part of that is not being locked into big contracts of players who are like 34 plus. So like clearly
Yeah.
they didn't need Pavelski this year because they won the cup without him, and now they have
Yeah.
all this cap space to potentially go after someone next year.
And they won it without Stamkos also, which was
Yeah.
like, sure, he played a shift and got a great goal, but like without him, I actually meant to look into the Stamkos cards because the guy lifted the cup first. He won the cup. Everyone loves Stamkos. Name value is huge. So I wonder what happened there. Like, does his card go up because he won a Stanley Cup, regardless of like him barely doing anything?
All right, I'm taking a look right now. So I'm seeing a Young Guns of Stamkos just sold. What's today? The 30th? So on the, oh no, 29th. Yeah, today. So there's 86 for a raw one. I'm seeing a 325 for a PSA 10. Canadian, by the way, for the American listeners. So this is like pennies, actually, if you're in the States right now. Then I guess like you have to kind of scroll for a while. So let me just kind of scroll down to, I don't know, like let's say go to June or beginning of July. Here, I've got a July 2nd. His Young Guns went for 75 raw. What did I say that the raw one just went for? 86. So I don't know. I mean, those are just two, like, that's a small sample size. Maybe not a huge increase, but it is interesting that it is even going for a little more
Yeah.
just because he held the cup, even though he wasn't involved too much.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's super interesting the impact that winning a Stanley Cup has and kind of all these things. I think the next episode we're thinking about doing is kind of how card values are impacted by things like winning the Stanley Cup or free agency. But just to quickly touch on it, like how does the value of a card change if someone wins the cup? And also, I think super interesting is like 20 however many won the cup this year, call it 30 guys maybe, but some of their values don't go up and some do, right? If you're looking at a guy like Sorelli, for example, like I bet his card kind of didn't do much. Or Chernak on defense, does his value go up?
Well,
Like, he
yeah.
did win a cup, but he's hockey cards are so much about the face value, the name value, like the superstars of the league, right?
Yeah, I mean, Sorelli was a solid like two-way player on Tampa, but
Yeah,
his face wasn't on the highlight reels all throughout the playoffs. And I'm seeing that his Young Guns just sold today for $2.54 on
right.
eBay with $4 shipping. So yeah, I don't think it's too hard to get your hands on one of those.
You know,
But
it'd be
yeah, so we'll,
another interesting one is Pat Maroon, because
yeah,
like his
two-time Cup winner.
impact was probably behind the scenes more so than on the ice. But how does that translate to the hockey card world?
Not much. It's not looking like, actually, I'm not even seeing many maroon cards sold. I guess it's an older card at this point. 2011, 2012 is his Young Gun year. I see there was a one for $6. That was September 20th, and nothing else is
Hmm.
coming up right now for
Really?
sold auctions
Huh.
in the at least on eBay. Maybe I'll go to all listings. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it's a rare card in a way.
I guess so. So yeah, maybe. Well, I guess I could not look at sold and just see like currently what's being listed. I don't know if this is like interesting podcasting. This is what we're going to learn as we go through. This is still only episode 2, so that we're going to really want the feedback from the listeners to know like what works and what doesn't, and we'll like hone in on what's an entertaining podcast. But there's right now one that's I don't know, like 99 cents. I'm seeing it listed like 99 cents with like 1 bid or 0 bid. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be a hard thing to get. Some, of course, people are pulling a Ryan and trying to just like capitalize and find one, I guess, sucker to pay a little extra. I see like listed on a buy it now for like $26, but I don't know if anyone's going to bite on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, like maybe this leads into our topic we're going to talk about, but I see a lot of listings where the seller will just put it up there at a buy now price and leave it there and hope that one day someone comes along that just wants that card. And if you're not kind of paying attention to the value or the prices it's sold for in the past, you might go online and see Patrick Maroon, 2-time Cup winner in the last 2 years, $5, and think, oh, that's a steal.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I guess I said that it happened to me a little bit last week. I jumped in and bought a Jack Campbell card for only $5, but probably I could have gotten it for less if I was more careful. But I was just, start trying to rack my brain for whose value might go up, and I'm not having huge regrets there. But you're right, that was a buy it now that I'm sure the person was surprised that I bid on that, especially because I also had to pay the shipping. Yeah, so I guess any other general news, I guess I did want to tell you a bit about some other cards that like I've been buying and selling it. Just interested to get your takes a little bit. I recently bought, I thought it was a good deal. Maybe this could be like a segment every week, just sort of like, was this a good deal or not? And then Ryan, you'll tell me. I got Dougie Hamilton, Young Guns, for like, it was super cheap. Okay, I should have this ready up. Oh yeah, $4.05 plus $4 shipping. So I spent $8 total to get what looks to me, it's a raw, but it looks like it's in perfect condition. Dougie Hamilton, he was leading defenseman in points before he got injured. He was right up there with Carlson and Josi. Maybe next year, imagine if he plays the full season, doesn't get injured, with Svechnikov and Aho and all those guys on Carolina. I feel like it's a sure thing, right?
Yeah, so my answer would be to go look up Roman Josi, go look up Erik Karlsson, like look up these guys that you're comparing him to, and then also you have to think like what's the fame of these guys, right? Like Dougie Hamilton plays in Carolina. No one really talks about him. Like I know we do, like the super fans talk about Dougie Hamilton a little more because he maybe helps us in fantasy, or we hope that he's on our favorite team. But he's arguably better than Erik Karlsson. Sorry, lately. But his value is probably still less in the hockey card world, right?
Oh yeah.
But that's because Erik Karlsson has like a crazy personality.
Well, and he has also had a storied career. Like, let's not
Sure.
get like, yeah. I mean, like Dougie Hamilton. The thing with Hamilton, I guess, is to me he seems like maybe a guy that isn't there yet. But I think he was on his way before he got injured this year, and so I'm
Yeah.
hoping just next year he can continue what he was doing. I'm seeing like Roman Josi Young Guns are selling for like around 21, 22, like raw. So, by the way, when we say raw, we mean ungraded. We're going to do an episode about grading at some point. We should probably also mention the name of our podcast is the Near Mint Hockey Card Podcast, which is a reference to grading. Near Mint is what? Like what score is that?
Yeah, so near mint, it depends what grading company you're going with. So there's PSA and Beckett or BGS are the two main ones. But if you're talking Beckett, and we will because that's kind of the design I've used for the podcast overlay here, a near mint card is 7.5 out of 10. And in Beckett, you're talking 9.5 is pretty much like the best condition. There is a 10, but it's crazy. It's almost impossible to get. It's called pristine. But when you're thinking about a PSA 10, which is 10 out of 10 for PSA grading, that's equivalent to a BGS 9.5. And so 7.5 is near mint, a couple steps down from that.
Interesting. Okay, so we're being a little self-effacing. We're still pretty good quality podcast. Maybe one day we'll upgrade ourselves. Is there any sort of thing as like card restoration? Can I have a poor quality card and somehow pay someone to bring up the value?
No, no. So that would be considered illegal. Well,
Really?
maybe not illegal, but illegal in the world of cards. So if you were to take a card and there's one thing called trimming. So if you have a card that has like a little bit of a rough edge, and you took like an Exacto and you just kind of
Oh.
you fixed it up a little, and you sent that into PSA or Beckett, if they notice, they're going to send it back as ungradable because it's altered.
Interesting. I guess that makes sense. So like they're probably taking out the measuring tape and making sure the size of the card is the original size.
Yeah, there was I haven't read all the articles yet, but there was a big scandal about it because they were sending back graded cards and they missed a lot of that basically. So I think they've got like an extra eagle eye on it right now, like double magnifying, like really getting in there.
It's funny, like, because this is all like made up, right? Like, we've just decided as a community that we want our cards to be like unchanged. But like in the art world, isn't that a thing? Like they're always like
Restoration.
restoring old paintings and like because they want it to look perfect. But I guess in the card world, like it's better for my Gretzky that was a 4 out of 10. I'd rather like people would rather that have a little bit frayed corners rather than sort of be cleaned up and look nice. But then we know it wasn't like originally how it came out of the pack way back when.
Right. I think there's kind of something authentic and like real about those Gretzky's that have like a little bit of dinged up corners. Since we recorded last week, I've been talking to a couple people a little older than myself that remember like throwing their cards against the wall.
Oh no.
And like seriously, they'd have all their cards and they'd have a game where they'd throw them against the wall, and whoever got their card closest to the wall got to pick up all the cards and they were theirs now. And
Yeah.
so like no wonder the corners got dinged up.
I just feel like it's so funny because I'll bet you also if you go to these people now and they're probably like old and I don't know, they probably like fought in a war or something. And we'd be like, did you know that this card would be worth like $5,000 if you didn't throw it against the wall? They'd probably look at us like we're kind of crazy, right? Like what are you young kids doing buying and selling? I don't know, maybe like I'm sure like a lot of older people are buying cards too, but it's just kind of funny to think that someone as a kid thought that it was fine and then now they realize they've like just given away thousands of dollars just by if they probably didn't keep the card though, to be fair. So maybe it's not really an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said for how much fun they had as a kid. You can't really
Right.
like trade that away.
They
Um,
could have put it in a hard case first and then thrown that against the wall to at least protect it a little bit. Come on.
I don't know if they had that back then, and grading even is like relatively new.
Or you know
Um,
what? They could have had fun by taking a piece of paper, writing the name of the card on the paper, and then ball that up and throw that. Leave the cards clean in a pile. Okay, if I ever have kids, Ryan, I'm gonna teach them to play in a safe way with their cards.
yeah, card safety is important.
You know, when I was growing up, I remember thinking my awesome card collection I talked about last week that most of it isn't even worth that much. All my 90s superstar rookies. I thought like the goal of this was to one day I'd have this like amazing inheritance for kids that I'll have one day. And they'll just be like so excited when I give them, you know, it'll be like in Pulp Fiction when they open the briefcase and it's like gold like shining on the face. And I was like, whoa. But
Yeah,
if that were to happen now, they'd be like, oh, I could buy a 10 Pavel Bure upper deck rookies in a lot for like $5. So I'm not so interested.
yeah. I mean, there was definitely a certain amount of marketing when we were growing up by companies like TY with the Beanie Babies. And
Mm.
I'm sure that happened in the card industry too, right? Where they're like hyping up the fact that maybe one day you'll get rich off of these if you just keep them. Um,
Yeah, so I guess everyone had that in mind, and that's why it's not so valuable. And now it's only us serious people buying these young guns, like the Dougie Hamilton that I brought up here. I'll throw one more name at you.
yeah,
I don't know if this is much like me asking you if I got a good deal. It's also like me kind of sharing like what guys I think like would be a good time to buy. That's like why I bought it. So maybe people are curious what I've been buying. And another name that jumps out to me that I was able to get for less than $5 also before shipping, Kevin Fiala. I got his Young Guns from 2015-16 for 475. It was part of like it was one of these things where I'd already bought one card from the seller and then I bought a
yeah.
bunch of others, so I was able to save a lot on shipping. I bought into like 12 cards from that seller. But it was a pretty fun set of cards. Fiala, Josh Anderson, Shea Theodore. The next couple you'll scoff at me, Sanheim and Kunin. Kunin, I'm just, because maybe he could be the top line setter. Not those were each 99 cents. D'Angelo, Adam Fox, Ehlers, Pulak and Sam Steele. So, not the craziest set, but I spent, I think, 30 something on that whole lot. And, but I
Yeah,
wanted I wanted to specifically ask about Fiala just because I feel like he's also like Hamilton. He showed us a glimpse of a superstar last year. For him, it was at the end of the season instead of Hamilton at the beginning of the season. But if he could just continue what he was doing at the end of last year, all through next year, might not help that he's playing with Luke Kunin to do this. But if, maybe Nashville gets Minnesota gets another center. I'm thinking Nashville because that's what he looks like on the card. But yeah,
right.
if Minnesota gets a center for Fiala to play with, who knows? Like, I just feel like that's another guy that could go up a lot potentially if he has a big season.
Yeah, I think Fiala again is like, is he going to become like star power? Like, are people gonna recognize his face? You could sort of see the beginning of that last year, where like people were like, "Who is this guy?" But actually, something that you reminded me of there that I think does have some value with cards is the jersey they're wearing in their rookie picture, like on their Young Guns card, is not irrelevant. So,
Oh,
or at least that's what I've kind of noticed. I need to kind of dig further on this, but I think that players that have like stuck with their team since they were a rookie have more value because they're kind of like still on that team. And I also wonder if like you were an Oiler when you were a rookie, for example, like Taylor Hall, if that kind of boosts your value because you've got that Oilers jersey on.
interesting. So what would you say, what are the places is it just all the Canadian teams? Like, which jerseys are the like big market jerseys that their hockey cards are worth more?
I think Original Six is like an easy answer. Canada definitely has a boost. Um, and then there's probably a couple interesting markets. But yeah, it's based on fan base mostly, right? So if you look at like dollars spent on jerseys or in arenas, New York Rangers, Toronto Maple Leafs players have an insane markup. It's not even fair. Um, Now they
Yeah, I've
also have some
noticed.
high end guys, but
Well, yeah, I've noticed. I've been looking. I'd mentioned this last week. I'm looking into buying some Pedersens. I feel like
mhm.
he's even at his value now. I still think that his cards are a good deal, and like he's being sold for like three. Well, his cards. I mean, obviously, like $300 less than like an Austin Matthews,
Yeah,
and I feel like they're probably. I don't know, like Matthews is maybe better in fantasy because he takes more shots. Like that's what the first thing that comes to mind. But like in terms of like superstar in the league, like Pedersen's the one who led his team farther in the playoffs this year.
right.
So I
Yeah,
don't know.
Pedersen's got the hype right now, but he's still never gonna surpass Matthews unless like something crazy happens to Matthews.
Well,
Um,
or maybe if like Pedersen wins the cup next year, carries his team all the way, maybe that'll do something. That's what I'm hoping for after I buy some
I'm
of his
sure
cards.
that could change things a little bit. Um,
Though of course, if imagine if a Leafs player, imagine if the Leaf, just imagining the Leafs winning the cup is like
oh
so
my
hard to
god.
imagine. But like you could just imagine people will lose their minds for whoever are the star players on the team, like the Points and Kucherovs of the Leafs when they make it to the finals. Like Matthews and Marner are just going to sell for. It'll be like unpriced. They'll just go right into a museum every single rookie card.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the same is true for McDavid, even though his price is pretty high right now. If that guy goes on and wins two cups, I can't even imagine what'll happen. Um,
Can I ask you, speaking of McDavid, I've been seeing, I know we're going to do a whole episode about grading, but just like sprinkle some things in here. There's a huge difference, right? Between like a 9 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10. Like a
Massive.
PSA 9 McDavid, I've been seeing for like, less than 1500. And then a PSA 10, we're talking like 3-4 grand potentially.
Yeah, yeah. So PSA definitely is a huge difference between 9 and 10. What's I think more interesting to me is a BGS 9.5 and a PSA 10, which the industry consider equal, even though those numbers don't seem equal. There's a pretty decent difference, like $500-$600 between those. Um,
Like saying PSA 10 is worth more than
yeah,
BGS 9.
yeah.
So like, why would you ever send, if you have a card that you think is mint, why would you send it to Beckett if you could send it to PSA and be more likely to get a 10 and it'll be worth more?
I don't know. I
Hmm.
like I know that certain graders are better for like historical cards versus new cards, and definitely I think personally I'd send it to Beckett if I had an autographed card. Um, but I don't know. Like it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me to send it to Beckett when the value of those are lower. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I guess we'll be learning as we go. We're gonna send some to PSA. The autograph thing is interesting, actually. I'm gonna add that to our list for an episode. That's wild. You told me that Beckett will authenticate autographs even
Mhm.
if there's like no evidence or anything. Like, I just send in this card that I think is signed by a player, and then they'll like somehow they've got some expert that knows how to look at
Yeah.
autographs and tell if it's correct or not.
Yeah, so we should be clear, like the autographs that you pull out of a box of cards, they don't need to authenticate those because those came from Upper Deck. But if you have a card and you meet Connor McDavid and he signs it, there's no proof that he did that. So
Yeah.
you have to send it in. And yeah, they have a database of signatures and professionals that review whether it is actually his signature. And yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm kind of surprised because, in my opinion, I've never tried it, but it seems like how hard could it be to forge a signature, right? Like just like I don't know, take a tracing paper or something, like find an example of it, and just I don't know. I feel like if I put my mind to it, I could sign someone's autograph and it would look similar. But I guess Beckett knows how to tell. I do have actually a Felix Potvin rookie card that I
Ah,
lined up in Ottawa, but that I guess I probably won't sell because how much could it even be worth? And like my parents did like sit with me for like 2 hours in line waiting to go get
yeah.
this signature. And I actually have a picture, and I remember being kind of disappointed after because I'm like smiling with the biggest grin of all time, and Potvin just has sort of a grumpy face, like he's been signing autographs for hours and he's tired. And so it wasn't like the prized image that I was hoping for, but I do have a signed rookie card. And I remember though afterwards I sort of learned, or I was sort of told that like actually getting a signature on a valuable card was actually a mistake because now you're like defacing this like valuable. Well, at the time I thought it was going to be valuable Felix Potvin rookie card. I'm sure you could get it for $2 now, but what? Okay, again, we'll do this in an episode. One last thing, and then we'll get to our main topic today. But yeah, what do you think about if you have a good card? If you had a Young Guns Fiala, and then you happen to be walking down the street with your Young Guns Fiala, and then you see him walking down the street, do you give it to him with a marker and ask him to sign it, or would that be a big mistake? I mean, assuming that you actually care about money, because I know we probably should give some credence to the fact that some people are just trying to have fun and enjoy their lives,
Yeah.
and like they don't care about making a profits off of their cards, and it'll be cool to them. So obviously, do it. But if you're trying to make a profit, do you give Fiala the card to sign, or do you ask him to sign your shirt or something instead?
I think personally I would get him to sign it, but I don't know whether that would increase its value or not. But it does make it a 1 out of 1, right? Like nobody else has that card.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of things that go into signature quality, like how well they do their signature. Because if they do it fast, maybe it's weird, or like maybe they write on top of the Young Guns text, and all of a sudden like you can't read the card. Like it's yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one. But I do think personally that I would much prefer to like run into someone and like as someone in chat is saying, have a marker on you, and like all your cards in your pocket. Um, like it would be so much more fun to get an autograph kind of by chance than waiting in a line for them.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I feel so awkward. I did once see Danny Briere walking
Oh,
around in downtown Ottawa, and I like did the thing where like I got my friend to sort of pose for a picture, and Briere was in the background, and really I was focusing on Briere because I made it look as if I was just taking a picture of my friend. Because like I don't know, I'm too shy to like I can't imagine myself just going up to him when he's like he was with a lady, and I was like. Well, maybe that'd make him look good, but like I don't know, like hey, can you sign my card? Like I don't know, it feels so lame. Also, there was the like 10% chance that it wasn't Danny Briere and just someone who looks
oh
like
my
him.
God.
That would have been also awkward. I'm pretty sure it was.
That's hilarious. Okay, you said one more thing, but I have one fun segment to try out
Ooh,
before we get to our main topic.
I'm a fan of fun.
Yeah. So this is something that I kind of dreamed up. So I'm gonna give you three names. One name is gonna be worth $20. One is 35, and one is 55. And you're gonna have to choose which one is worth each value.
Okay. And just to be clear, we're talking about a upper deck Young Guns of that name,
Correct.
ungraded, I assume, good quality.
Young Guns, Upper Deck, ungraded, and these prices are me scrolling through a bunch of sold ones and kind of taking the average.
I'm feeling confident about this because
You're
I've been
feeling
like,
confident?
well, I've been on eBay a lot while looking at card value. So maybe I'm now setting myself up. But so what was it? 20? What were the prices again?
20, 35, and 55.
Okay. I'm
Okay?
ready.
All right, so the three players are Mark Stone, Alexander Barkov, and Johnny Gaudreau.
Okay. Barkov, Gaudreau, and Stone, and the prices are 20, 35, and 55. Okay. I'm going to say Mark Stone is the 20. And I'm going to say Gaudreau is the 35 and Barkov is the 55.
All right. Elan's been doing his homework. Nailed it. Yeah, so you're right. I've just kind of been thinking, our value's always what we expect. And in some cases, I feel like they are. Like when we look at, if you look at Matthews versus someone on any other team, you're like, oh yeah, it's Matthews. Mm-hmm. But like this one, I actually found like Stone, Gaudreau, and Barkov. Like if you think about who's the best player, you might actually say Stone.
Yeah.
And like Barkov plays in Florida, so like why is he so high up there?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't love this. I don't love that this is the truth. Like I know it is, and right. I've seen Mark Stone Young Guns selling for 20. Like I've bid a couple auctions like 15 and then I got outbid, but whatever then. But like then I had to like think to myself, why am I bidding on this? Like Mark Stone is doing amazingly and this is all he's worth. I don't think he's going to like do better at this point. He's already in his late 20s. I feel like unless Vegas, I guess, wins the cup. But like, I don't know. I feel like someone like Gaudreau and Barkov, they're a little bit younger and maybe they still have the potential to do something special. Like the Flames, I feel like the Flames have never gone far in the playoffs. Yeah. Now we're getting rumors that Gaudreau might be traded. Maybe that could be good for him depending on where he goes. And like Barkov, I feel like we already think of him as like a star, and I guess 55 is actually a pretty good price for him. And like, but also I think the reason why he's priced so high is because people still think there's like room for him to grow in like fame and value. Because maybe Florida one day makes the playoffs, and maybe Barkov actually could hit 100 points. But it's a bummer, right?
It is.
Because Mark Stone should be worth more, and at this point, I don't see how he ever will.
And that's kind of why I thought this would be an interesting segment, because Mark Stone was just in the playoffs. Vegas almost made it again. He was probably their best player, so it's wild, and I think it's interesting to highlight. And I think there's definitely an element of the way that players play the game, and Barkov is a flashy guy. He makes the highlight reels constantly, and he's regarded as like one of the best players by like the general public, I'll call it. Whereas Mark Stone might not be brought up until you're into like the super hockey nerds talking.
Yeah, he's great for takeaways, but those usually don't show up in the highlights. Even in fantasy, only the really nerdy leagues on Fantrax have takeaways. But you know what? That could actually be a good transition into our main topic for this episode, which are mistakes, because maybe that is an example of a mistake you might make, is thinking to yourself, oh, Mark Stone's awesome. $20 is cheap. I'm going to go buy like 20 Mark Stone Young Guns because I think he's going to go up. And I guess you do have to realize that potentially that's just what a player is going to be worth. And even if you don't like it, you have to, and I guess it also comes to, I know something you had in the list, so maybe actually I'll cut to you, but like, I think one of the things I saw that you had in there is you have to kind of have a plan, right? Like if you're buying a card, what's the reason? Like obviously if you love Mark Stone, then that's a good enough reason for you. But if you're planning on reselling it, it's like what are you hoping to have happen? Like what's going to trigger it to go up? When would you sell it? And unfortunately, I feel like it seems to me from following eBay over this short time, you want to buy these like young players, like a Nick Suzuki, who like he wishes, and the Habs wish he'll be like Mark Stone one day. Like he's a great prospect with upside to hopefully, fingers crossed, be Mark Stone. And his card is currently like 60 plus for a Young Guns Nick Suzuki. So it's like you buy him. So if you're going to buy a Suzuki, I feel like you got to think of like, when are you going to sell this card? Because he's already worth so much. And soon I could see him being the Mark Stone down at $20, a really good player, but just not getting much love anymore just because he's older. And like, maybe you start just thinking that, okay, I guess this guy's hit his peak.
Yeah, so I think buying with a purpose is a big thing, and the mistake would be buying without a purpose. Before I kind of get into that, I do want to touch on something you said. If you're buying cards for your personal collection, that's kind of outside of the realm of this because you're collecting, like maybe you're collecting Sharks players or you want to have all the young guns. And that's kind of like a different conversation, but that is a purpose. So I think that's important. But yeah, it's definitely something that I did too. Is you see a player that you know is a very good hockey player, and you see their value is much lower than their peers. One that I looked at was Logan Couture, who, you know, probably the best player on his team. People used to talk about him as like Crosby like, and his cards are not very expensive. But I didn't really think about like when would I sell a Logan Couture, or why do I expect the value of the Couture to go up? And the answer to that, if I'm thinking about it in retrospect, is like he'd kind of have to win a cup. And is San Jose winning a cup?
I mean, yeah, long pregnant pause there. I mean, when they signed Eric Carlson for 10 million a year for 7 years or whatever it was, I think the plan was to go for a cup. It definitely didn't work out well that way last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
And
have some good players, but yeah, I get your point. Like, when is Couture going to go up at this
right.
point?
Right. And there's a question in the chat about does position affect the prices? And I think that's important to think about too. I know you talked about Jack Campbell as a backup goalie, and like even if you're wrong in your reasoning for buying Jack Campbell as like maybe the starter in Toronto gets hurt and he becomes the goalie, at least you have a plan for him, right?
Yeah.
And so
Like the mistake for me would be to have bought this Jack Campbell and then have like Anderson get hurt or get traded or something, and Jack Campbell goes on a great run and his cards go up, and then me like think, yeah, but maybe he'll be even better. Maybe he'll go up even more. Like I feel like
yeah,
I definitely have this idea in my head that like once Campbell's hitting like $20, if that ever happens, I'm gonna sell because I'm not gonna delude myself into thinking that
right.
no, the sky's the limit on this guy. So like yeah,
And
I bought that card, I guess, right, with a purpose. And who knows if it'll actually come true or not. But you need to sort of know what your plan is. And like you said,
yeah.
if the purpose of your buying is to make money, and don't forget that we're going to be doing our fantasy hockey card game
Mm,
soon, where we're going to be competing against each other to see who
different
can make the
purpose.
most. Yeah, so who can make the most money. So that is an example where
Yeah.
it's like you're not buying this card to invest for 1,000. Though I guess we did say that like at the end of the season, we'll still count your cards that you haven't sold, and we'll just count them by their current value. But I feel like if you buy a Jack Campbell, yeah, the goal is to wait for him to get a couple shutouts in a row and then sell while the Toronto hype is going crazy.
Yeah, if he blows up, like, and I think the other interesting thing about having a purpose is having a reason or a time or a value you will sell at, and that will allow you to get rid of him because Campbell is a bit of an interesting case where if he becomes the starter and kind of blows up a little bit, I think you'll feel pretty okay getting rid of him. But if I don't know, what's a good example? Let's say you buy a Dowling card
Yeah.
and your goal is for his value to double, and you think that's pretty achievable because he's one of the best defensemen, young defensemen in the league, and his values haven't really skyrocketed yet.
In fact, I actually just bought Darlene for
Yeah.
$20 off of Kijiji. I biked 45 minutes to some guy's house, and he was definitely high,
Oh
and
my god.
like he was like smoking a joint while I was talking to him, and he was like clearly had been doing it for a while, and so
So you
it
got a
was a
good
pretty.
deal.
It was a fun interaction. Yeah, I should have waited and negotiated at the time. I'd already agreed to pay him $20, but yeah, I definitely am expecting Darlene's value to go up, but you're right. I haven't actually thought about it because it would be so tempting, right? Like if
Yeah.
let's say he has a good year next season and his card's selling for 50, on one hand, it's like, oh, this is a great profit. I could sell this right now. I've made $30. But on the other hand, he was first overall pick. He's having a great season. He's only 21 or whatever he is going to be next year.
Right.
Like you'd think, oh, what can he be like even better? Like how
Yeah.
high can he go? And it's sort of hard to know. But that's the thing with these young players. Like all of their cards, for some reason, Darlene like not as much. Like I don't know why Nick Suzuki is more than Darlene. Though I guess or like
Montreal.
yeah, because on Montreal, but like Capo Caco or like I don't know some of these players. Maybe it's also forward versus defenseman. But it's
Yeah.
like uh some of these guys, a Capo Caco right now, you have to spend like $30-$40 for to buy his card, and it's like even if he has a great season next year, is it going to go up higher? Like it's already seems pretty high. unless he
Yeah,
becomes like a huge, yeah.
he kind of ballooned a little bit. But again, New York Rangers, big impact there. They're set to get, the next best phenom in the league. Um, and you did mention position there a little bit, so I'll touch on it quickly. I think, generally speaking, you want forwards and you want people that are going to get points. So if you are going towards defense, you want guys that are getting points. And there's always exceptions to those rules a little bit, but those are kind of the highest value cards. And then goalies, like you need to be buying Carey Price or Patrick Waugh, or they're not really going crazy. Maybe
Mhm.
Vasilevsky right now has a pretty big boost, but
Right now, Shestyorkin cards are going for a lot. And I
really
guess that's again the Rangers. Like he had a great finish to the season. I was thinking I wanted to buy one, but it was like going for 40, $50.
interesting.
Let
Yeah,
me check
so
right now.
I actually have a couple Samsonov cards, but I don't know. My theory with goalies is kind of jump ship on them when you can because they're so unpredictable. And yeah, that's basically the end of my thought. They're so unpredictable unless it's Carey Price level, or maybe Carter Hart would be one that I would hang on to.
Yeah, I'm looking on eBay right now. I'm seeing a Shestyorkin auction, 14 hours left. It's already at $41 and
Whoa,
climbing. People are into this guy. I mean, he had a great career in the KHL. He was amazing in the AHL. He came to the Rangers, was amazing there. I'm looking at the sold values now, and I'm seeing like, yeah, around 40. So I guess like what he's at now, it's like this card is going to sell for more than he's been selling for lately. So people are even getting more excited for him at the moment, or maybe it's just one crazy person that went too high. Though I guess the way eBay works is like even if you bid super high, someone else has to bid you up to actually make you spend that much.
yeah,
So two crazy people. But yeah, I guess with goalies, I don't know. I guess I'll have to wait and see. It's interesting that you say that because like all I know is from my experience in this month watching the playoffs, like Hudobin seemed to go up and Vasilevsky seems to be selling very well right now. So we'll have to see
yeah.
next year how the hot goalies do.
Yeah, I mean, as I listen to you say that, maybe there's more because goalies vary so much. There might be kind of an investment opportunity there because you can kind of get in on their dip and they kind of waver more.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of an interesting take.
Yeah, so I guess just to close the talk on these like prospect cards and this general tip you gave of like
Yeah,
buying with a purpose, uh, I still don't really know if I know the answer yet because it's weird with these prospects where their cards are worth more than like established superstars. Like Capo Caco's worth more than Mark Stone and Johnny Gaudreau right now, as we've discussed, and it's obviously because people are excited about what Caco can do. So it's like if you get one, if you open a pack and pull a Caco right now, do you sell now while he's high, or do you wait because obviously he was drafted second overall and we're expecting big things from him? But like in the back of my mind, I think like, well, like Johnny Gaudreau did big things and he's been doing big things and he's only selling for 35. So like, how
yeah,
big are these things that Kako will need to do to be worth a lot of money? Come like 6 years from now when he's no longer the new hot thing that people are excited about. So to me, my current takeaway, and obviously if we do this podcast for 6 years we'll probably learn a lot of lessons and change, but my current sense is you probably don't want to be buying these expensive prospects, and you, if anything, you want to be selling unless it's like a superstar, right? Unless it's like
yeah.
a Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes. That's kind of different because I feel like these guys are going to have like amazing careers, and but aside from like the crazy ones like that, someone like a Hughes or Kako, I'd wait. I almost feel like it'll just go down first before it goes up because they're not going to be superstars next year.
Yeah, those two are going to be really interesting to watch. I think you might still be kind of at a point where you could buy because they haven't yet had a season where they break out. But obviously, on those two, you'd probably want to have gotten in already by this point. Um, I was
Yeah,
actually
it's
looking
yeah.
at the last 3 or 4 years of drafts, and there's quite a few guys that haven't made the league yet that I think could be interesting. Um, like if you look at Doc, even Kirby Doc from last year, if you were to get his card before he broke into the league, it was probably pennies. But now he's like the new hotness, as you say. So it's like skyrocketed. And people are
Yeah.
definitely buying the value of the future. Um, but I also think there's just like, and this is why I think hockey cards is a little bit different than fantasy hockey, or just like even just valuing players in general for hockey. Like, is this guy better than that guy? um, the like media attention and attention on these new players is so much higher than on the guys that are like expected to get 60, 70 points every year.
Right. So yeah, Kirby Doc is another like great example. So like you said, he would have been a great investment at the start of the season because I guess he was third overall, so maybe not
Yeah.
like as much hype as the first two. But like now you could buy his card for around $30-$40, or I should say maybe sell
Yeah.
for that much. And I don't know. I just feel like I'm interested to know, like, is maybe this like the fact that we're expecting him to break out next year, is that already priced in? You know, it's like that's why he's cost 32 right now, because people think he's going to do well. So now next year, if he does get 65 points, is it going to go up even more, or was that taken into account with the fact that that's his current price?
Yeah, I mean he's a little bit different because Kako and um, Jack Hughes haven't done it yet, and he kind of has. He had a great playoffs, um, but actually the doc talk leads me into another uh, mistake that I made personally, and I think it could still pan out. So I'll lead with that. But when I first got into this, I wasn't paying too close attention to the grading companies and uh, I was looking at grade 9, grade 10, 10 out of 10, kind of as all equal. And I ended up getting a Kirby Doc 9.0, but I got it from a company called Mint, which is kind of ironic with the name of the podcast. But um, I didn't realize at the time that Mint grading was not as respected as PSA or as Beckett BGS. And so the value is actually changing based on what grading company you go to. And, um, you know, that also could change in the future. And the value of this card doesn't change from what I bought it for. So I could still sell the mint graded dock again. But I just didn't notice that. And I think it's important to really like do your homework on the grading companies and understand what the values are and what the differences are.
Yeah, well, I think it also is just nice that if you buy a card from a grading company that's reputable, then probably you'll find other examples already on eBay of that exact
Yeah.
same card with that exact same grade being sold. So then you could just know, okay, this is what a Sebastian Aho PSA 9 is selling for now. So is this a good deal or not? But if you're buying it from Mint, like who I've never heard of, like who knows what that is even worth. And then when you do want to sell it, I think prospective buyers that are thinking it's a smart investment might not know like what, they might be wary to bid because they don't know if
Right.
they'll be able to resell it because no one knows this company.
Yeah, it'll be harder to sell for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Also,
so
just 9, it just seems like 9 is such a disrespected number. Like I'm just seeing like PSA 9s. Like I'm seeing a Patrick Laine PSA 9 sold a couple or September 8th for less than $40, like
yeah,
38.99. And I think like a Laine PSA 10, we'd be talking about like, well, yeah, but look at 150. Like it's such a huge difference. It's almost like a 9. No one wants a 9. So I
yeah.
don't know. Don't even
So
buy it.
I mean, for the brand new cards, let's call them, like ones that have been made in the past few years, the odds of them being in 9.5 or 10 condition are quite a bit higher. So the population, or pop is the term in the industry, um, is going to be really high of cards graded that level. Whereas if you're looking at cards that are 10 or 20 or 30 years old, the number of cards that are
Oh yeah.
10s or 9s, like how many 9 Gretzky's can you find? It's not really a thing. So,
Yeah, definitely when that whole rant that I said was talking about like new cards,
yeah,
not
yeah.
like, yeah, obviously a Gretzky rookie that's a 9 is going to get some respect, I think. Yeah, by the way, the guy who's named Jack, but in the chat, Jack 0812, but actually I think he said his name was Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's asking about, here's another maybe potential, I don't know if this is a mistake because you would just learn, but like you search for, if you're trying to tell like what's the value of a player's card, definitely look at sold prices
Yeah.
and not current auctions, because he's saying why is Heiskanen only like $5
Yeah.
on eBay, and I'm pretty sure unless he's like looking at the wrong card, like if he's looking at a Young Guns canvas or an OPC or something, assuming we're talking about the main Young Guns upper deck card, probably there's like 3-4 days, or he said, yeah, 3-4 days left in the auction. So maybe
Yeah,
sometimes that's like a seller tip, which I think we want to do an episode about that too,
we
like
do.
how to like
Yeah,
sell. And it's like, they're trying to probably get people excited. It definitely works for me, right? You see a $5 haze skin, you're like, oh, I'll get that. So then you bid, then you're definitely going to get outbid. And
yeah,
then all of a sudden eBay is going to start messaging you being like, hey, there's only a day left. I saw you bid on this card. You sure you don't want to get it now? And so I think there's a reason why they're pricing it low. Obviously the seller's taking a small risk that what if no one notices? And then all of a
right.
sudden you do have to sell it for $5. And actually I did get a little nervous when I posted my Ben Young Guns. I posted for like $8 or something because eBay actually just made a recommendation. They were like, this
Yeah.
is what we recommend you sell this card for, and you'll sell it in the end for like 30 something. And they were wrong. They lied to me because it only sold for whatever I said it was, 27. But yeah, it was $8, and then like I listed it for 7 days, and like 4 days went by without a bid. Or then at one point I was thinking maybe I should just like cancel it because no one's bid yet, and you could still cancel if no one's bid. And then all of a sudden a bid came in, and I was almost like disappointed because now I can't cancel it. And then it stayed at like $8 for a couple more days, and I got really nervous that I was just gonna have to sell my Ben Young Guns for $8. In that case, I would have rather held it, but then it did have the exciting finish,
Yeah.
and like I said, it did pop up enough. But yeah,
Yeah,
so as a buyer, yeah,
the
they're
last
they're
half
trying
an
to
hour
manipulate
is
you.
big. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
actually what happened with my Gretzky card. It was pretty wild. It was at around 1,000, and then just in the last minute, it went up like $200. Like
Right.
just like it was
Yeah,
exciting.
I was watching that actually because you told me you were like, "Oh, it hasn't really gone up." I was like, "Well, let's just watch the last 2 minutes."
It also comes back to bite you too. I remember I was looking at a Pedersen PSA 10, and I finally like convinced myself to take the plunge. The
Mm,
price looked good. I actually like got my wife with me, and we were both. I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna spend like I think it was like $200 whatever
yeah.
I bid on it. And then I was like, I think it's gonna be worth a lot. Like, just trust me. Like next year, the Canucks go to the playoffs. This card's gonna be worth a lot. And I bid like 200, and then we were like counting down. It was fun. There was like a minute left. I had the phone out, and then it got to like 10 seconds, and we're like counting, and then all of a sudden, just like outbid, 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 and then it ended up selling for like 250 or something, like
Yeah.
so much more. And I was like, I never was gonna. If I knew it was gonna go for that much, I wouldn't have wasted my time. But it was actually kind of fun, but it
Yeah.
was also kind of sad when I was like, I thought I had it, and then 10 seconds later, it's gone.
Yeah, I think all of that stuff is such a good learning experience, especially early. And that's kind of why we wanted to do this mistakes episode so early is you learn from all these things and adjust. And definitely paying super close attention on eBay is something that you kind of have to learn, and you do have to pay close attention. It comes back a little bit to doing things with purpose so that you can be paying attention and understanding like how much you want to spend on something so that you won't get carried away in that kind of auction frenzy. Um, but then, there's a lot of stuff to pay attention to on eBay. You have to pay attention to seller ratings. Like, is this seller like brand new and are they trying to scam people, or do they have good ratings? Like ideally you want to be like zooming in on the photos and making sure that like there's no visible
Mm-hmm.
scratches or corner dings or whatever.
Well, we should probably
Um,
dig into that actually. Can you expand like when you zoom into that image,
yeah,
like what do you look for? All I know really to look for is obviously like a scratch, like a noticeable like blemish on the face of the card. I feel like most people would be able to catch that. And then I personally then I go look at each corner and I try to tell if it's sharp.
yep,
Aside from that, I know you mentioned this thing to me about centering, and then
yeah,
you even sent me an example of like a card that wasn't nicely centered. And then I
hmm
think I responded being like, "Oh, I see." But I'll be honest, I couldn't really tell. I was just trying to sound cool.
yeah. So there's four, and you'll see them on any graded card by BGS. It's part of the reason I actually like BGS is they break down their grading instead of just saying 10. They give you a rating for all four things, and the four things are centering, surface, corners, and edges. And so those are the four things that I try to look at. I'm no expert at grading yet, but when I'm zooming in, it's not just the corners. You have to go all the way around every edge and see if there's nicks, both front and back, because sometimes things are on the back of the card that you can't see from the front. I find the surfaces one is really difficult because most of the cards are being shown in plastic, and the
Right.
plastic can be scratched up, and it's tough to tell. Um, and the centering one, depending on the year of the card, can also be extremely hard. Um, some years they'll have like the young guns in like kind of a box, for better lack of a better way of saying it, and then you can see like, is the box on the left like the same distance from the edge of the card as on the right. But some years the Young Guns is kind of on an off-centered design, and then it's a lot harder to see the centering. So that's definitely a skill that I think you have to build up if you want to get serious about it.
But Ryan, I gotta admit, like I just don't get it. Like, how is this possible? Like, Upper Deck is a company. They have one job to like
Yeah.
print these cards. And like if they print a card that's not printed right, like if I'm buying a 1920 pack and I pull a Makar Young Guns, and then like I send it to PSA and they tell me it's a 9 out of 10 centering, I'm like, F you, Upper Deck. Like, why? I paid full price for this pack of cards. Just like, I feel like Upper Deck should just let me send it in for a replace. Like, if I buy a pair of Bose headphones and then like my headphones don't work, they're gonna give me a refund. So like, it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense to me. How is that even? I can understand for an old card when they used to use, I don't know, inkjet printers or whatever they were doing to like print out these cards. By the way, I'm aware that it probably wasn't that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, how is it possible that with this big operation, they're printing cards that aren't centered? I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I do get it because I come from a graphic design background, and
Oh, I
centering
see.
centering borders is a nightmare. And if you've ever seen the way that they print cards, they're printed in these big sheets and then cut. And so you have to cut it properly and center it properly. And, there's, as much as like Young Guns are rare, there's still a hell of a lot of them made.
Yeah.
So I get it. And centering is definitely the weirdest one, because the other ones are all about like,
It's like how well, yeah,
did
yeah,
the card get damaged?
yeah. How
And
well did you take care of your card?
right.
That I feel like is what you should be
Yeah.
judged on. I don't like the idea that I'm going to send in a card and then get a low grade when it's not even my fault.
Yeah.
Uh, Upper Deck is lucky; they don't really have much competition, at least in terms of the like another company that people respect, so they can get away with it. I feel like if I was starting a new hockey card company, my number one marketing technique would be like, if your card isn't centered, I'll give you a new one.
Yeah,
Like,
and then Upper Deck would be like, yeah, but we have all the NHL rights, so we've got the logos and like,
yeah, then
and
I'll go to the NHL and be like, "Hey, Gary Bettman, do you want to be associated with this company that's ripping off its customers by sending defected cards and not accepting returns?"
I kind of
Like,
hope you do this now.
I think we should start this.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I don't know if we fully covered it, so just to make sure we crossed it off the list, another type of mistake which is similar to like buying without purpose, I guess, was this concept of like buying cards that people are really excited about right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like clearly, like you said, a bunch of players, not all of them, but like a bunch of players who are in the spotlight right now. I think we talked last week about Anton Hudobin. His cards are probably selling for more than they ever have,
Yeah.
potential probably more than they ever will, I would guess. Because what are the chances he again gets to be even a starting goalie, let alone a
Yeah.
starting goalie that leads his team to the finals? So it's
Um,
like, is there any reason aside from being a Stars fan to buy an Anton Hudobin Young Guns card right now? Like right now I'm
right
seeing just
now,
it's selling on eBay. Let me find the latest sold Hudobin Young Guns. 72. Oh, this is a gloss. We'll have to do a whole card about this. There's like Young Guns, but like with a gloss on it, and that's worth more. Okay, forget that. Okay, so $7 actually. So maybe it's not. Maybe people are smart enough. Oh no, here's one for 18. So yeah,
yeah.
some people are spending big on a Hudobin when I'm sure going into the playoffs that was like a $2 card.
Yeah, I mean, if we talk about him specifically, I think he does have going for him that he has a great personality. Like, there's so many great clips of him saying hilarious things.
Yeah.
And, he's got Dobby on his helmet. And so, like, there's a likability factor. But, yeah, like, he's a pretty old goalie. This is the first time he's been a starter, even. And he played amazing. I don't want
Oh
to take
yeah.
anything away from him. But hockey card wise, yeah, like I don't think that you should really get in on him. But also, like, there's hype about younger players too, and one that I got in on that I would say is maybe half mistake but half I don't care is Carter Hart. So I got him kind of partway into the playoffs, and the hype was definitely real. It had started, so I'll be curious to see if maybe I should have bought him after the playoffs. But I was also thinking, like, going back to my last point, there was purpose if they won the cup. they would be worth way more right now.
Right. That's the same as what I said about the Ben card that I bought and I'm
Right.
not selling right away. But
Uh,
I think Carter Hart is different because I almost think of like Netflix and how like it started going up and maybe a lot of people felt like, well, I might as well not buy it
right.
now because it's already started going up. And then it like continued to skyrocket. Like Carter Hart could
Yeah.
have an amazing, he's still so young and he's a starting goalie. And now we were actually just talking about this on Keeping Karlsson this past Sunday, the fantasy hockey podcast, about how like it seems like fewer and fewer teams are going with like one sure starter
Yeah.
and then the backup, they'll get a backup, hopefully someone that could like play some games so that the starter doesn't, get overplayed and
Right.
not rested. But you know what I mean? Like it's not the case where a lot of teams are now just doing 50-50 or 60-40, trying to go with what like Dallas had with Hudobin and Bishop. But so like a guy like Carter Hart or a Vasilevsky, they're becoming more rare. Hellebuck on Winnipeg. So it almost makes me think their cards will be worth more because it's going to be harder to win a Vezina. I'd imagine like when they decide who's going to win the Vezina, games played has got to be one of the considerations. And if a goalie only played 40 games, I don't think they'd have a chance against a Carter Hart
Yeah.
who maybe played a little bit worse but played 60 games.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's why I say it was like kind of a mistake. Because if I was going to do it again, I mean, I didn't have the choice because I got into this kind of mid playoffs a little bit. But if I was going to do it again, I'd say before the playoffs, buy that Hart card, assuming that his value could go up, and I would have been able to get it cheaper. So it was more about the timing for Carter Hart because I'm in no way upset that I have a Carter Hart card. I think it's going to be a great play long term because he's amazing.
So what's your plan? Like, do you have a price that you're going to sell it for?
Yeah. So I actually have not listed that, but Carter Hart for me is kind of in the same category as McDavid, where I do plan to keep them for a long time, and kind of with like that option out if like he wins the Conn Smythe and wins the Stanley Cup, like maybe you should consider unloading at that point. But yeah, I'm super high on Carter Hart, so I'm more in the longer term game with him.
Right, but you're saying maybe you bought the hype a little bit, could have gotten him for cheaper. And if I were to buy Pettersson right now, you were saying last week that maybe he's still riding a bit of a hype wave that could go down in a little bit. Hard to say.
I'm curious, actually, has he gone down in the last week?
No, not really.
No? Okay.
I feel like people love him.
Yeah,
He's
well,
great.
sure.
Okay, so let's get through the rest of our mistakes we had. I guess one that I came up with, which I think Matt wrote here in the chat right at the start,
Right.
buying packs.
Yeah.
And that's, again, I guess, I don't know if this is gonna be controversial because again, it kind of comes down to what your goal is. Like obviously there's this like fun rush of like opening a pack and pulling cards and seeing what you're gonna get. But are you gonna open a pack on the show for us?
I could.
That would be a lot of fun. Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's do that in a minute. Let's end the show with that.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. What pack is that?
It's 1920 Series 1.
So who are you hoping for to get in there?
1920 would
Is that
be
like Makar? Hughes?
Yeah. Svechnikov, I think.
So
I'd have to look.
or no. Svechnikov would be the year before, I would guess. But
oh yeah, you're right.
But Series 1 versus Series 2, I guess you need to know, which I guess is another mistake you want to avoid, is make sure you know when you buy if you are. So first I was saying maybe don't buy a pack, which we could get into. But if you are going to buy a pack, make sure you know like what cards are potentially in there.
And that was on my list. Yeah.
Okay. But okay, first about just buying or not buying. It just seems like if I'm trying to get like a Young Guns card on an Upper Deck pack is only like 1 in 4. You're going to get a Young Guns. And then there's a whole bunch of no-name players that show up there. I guess every single rookie that played that year pretty much shows up in the set. So seems like maybe unless you're going for like a McDavid or a card that's just worth so much at this point that it's not feasible to buy it off of eBay, it seems very unlikely that you're going to pull a valuable card from a pack versus just spending the money.
Yeah, I think the McDavid search, let's call it, might be worth it if you really did the math, but still probably not, because those packs have gone up in value. And yeah, you said it, that you're looking for a single card out of 50 Young Guns. Every pack has a 1 in 4 chance. And then there's another thing, is if that card's not in good condition, well, okay, now it needs to be in good condition. So you're looking for like to hit so many things. That if you're like from a purely financial standpoint, you're going to be better off buying the card. But on the flip side, if you enjoy opening packs, or you're looking to kind of learn about what's in the packs, or you're looking to collect some different cool inserts, I would say, like, if you have the right reasons and it comes down to purpose again, then opening packs isn't like bad. But
Yeah.
yeah, from the like financial odds perspective, it's more like gambling than investing.
Yeah, which obviously gambling is very popular, and
Sure.
I'll admit, very excited to watch you open this pack now and see who you get. So obviously there's something really good about that. What do you do with the other cards, by the way? Like I opened a pack a couple weeks ago. I was walking by 401 Games, and this is before we started talking. You started explaining why. I think I even bought like a pack of a card of a set that I wasn't even going to get a good card. I actually did end up pulling a Young Guns, and I actually forget some guy in Detroit that I had never heard of. I think I asked
uh
you about him.
was it Christopher Ian?
No, it wasn't him. Okay, I'll find. Sorry, this is like bad podcasting. It was a guy that's like 27 years old already, and I think has played like a couple games. And he's anyway, it was a useless pack. But I did pull a David Pasternak card,
Ah.
and it's like 2017, 18, 2018, 19. Is that I looked it up, it's not worth anything. Like I don't know. It feels like if you don't get a Young Guns, all these like superstar players aren't even worth anything as if it's not their Young Guns.
Yeah, basically. I mean, there's exceptions to that. There's like rare autos and like one of ones and like crazy things that they do put in these packs. So like there are other things, but the odds on those are like astronomical.
Right,
So
but the main set is basically worthless.
yeah. And I mean, I'm actually trying to find that out right now. Like if you have a complete set, can you sell it for something? Complete set being numbered 1 to 200, because the rookies are numbered 201 to 250.
Right.
So if you have 1 to 200, can you sell that for something to someone that wants to collect the whole set? Not sure.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I think it's just because it like kind of looks cool. Like you could set up a fun background behind you, like you have here, of
Yeah.
like you could show all your favorite players.
Yeah.
But I feel like these are the kinds of things. It's like those are the cards that I would be throwing against the wall with my friends, like the main set guys, because I don't see why those are ever going to go. If a Pasternak card isn't worth much now, I don't think it's going to go up.
No.
It's not even
Well,
$1.
so what's really, we're on like a super tangent here, but what I find extremely interesting is in basketball, football, the other sports, the base cards from players like after their first year. So like as you said, this year Svechnikov would be a year in. The base card is actually starting to take off. So it's really strange. Like it's not their rookie card; it's a base card,
But
and
like you're saying in their second season.
yeah. So like on the back of the card, you'd be able to see the stats from their first season, right? And those are taking off in other sports, and I think it's in part because the prices of rookies has gotten so expensive that not everyone can afford to buy a rookie of their favorite player, and so that's like the next coolest thing.
I see.
But yeah, so I don't know, maybe it'll change, but right now, yeah, they're not worth anything.
Interesting. Okay, so that's buying packs. That's also what we're saying. What was that second thing? If you do buy a pack, then make sure that you
Yeah.
know what cards are potentially going to be available.
Yeah, so if you look up the name of the box, so this one would be Series 1 2019-20 Upper Deck. There's things called checklists on the internet. You can get them on Cardboard Connection, or I think Beckett has some, and it'll list all the possible Young Guns in that year. And then you can get an idea of like, is it like, even though the value is probably not going to be worth it generally, but is this box better than another box? And the example I give is 2015-16. In Series 1, you have like McDavid, I think Rantanen, like it's Panarin, it's loaded. And then Series,
remember Panarin won the Calder over
I
McDavid.
know, because McDavid got injured.
Yeah.
And then you go to Series 2, same year, and it's basically Jack Eichel or bust. Like that's it. And so like obviously one of those boxes is going to be much better.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, make sure you know. Okay, so do you have any other mistakes you want to get to, or are we ready to open this pack?
I liked your point about shipping. and costs when selling? I know we covered it a little bit, but maybe you want to just talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I guess just like make sure you have the full story. So obviously, when you're buying a card, the shipping is part of the cost.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like I said, you can. I don't know if this is like smart or not because you might end up buying cards that you didn't want. But one, like a lot of sellers on eBay will say like $5 shipping and then free to add any up to 5 more cards without extra shipping cost. So you can maybe try to bid. If you're deciding between if you have 2 Pedersen Young Guns that you're looking at, maybe you'll bid on the one that also has a seller that's selling another card that you're planning on bidding on because potentially you could save on shipping. So
Yeah.
something to think about there. But yeah, and then when you're selling, like we've said, there's charges, and apparently I didn't even realize there's like both an eBay charge and a PayPal charge. I assumed that these couple cards I sold recently, I just thought that PayPal charge was the full charge always. I didn't even realize I was getting a deal. So yeah, make sure that you just think of the whole transaction. Plus, also, if you sell a card, you have to ship it. So you have to pay for the stamp and the whatever. So obviously you include that. You like have your own shipping cost on the card and you have to figure out how much it costs. I just went today and bought 5 bubble mailers and 7 stamps. So I'm ready because I have a couple more cards listed that I'm waiting to. But they're from my like old collection, my old life, the ones I'm just trying to dump. I'll keep you guys appraised when I'm trying to sell a cool card.
Yeah, I would love to see that. And maybe that's something we should post on our Instagram is like, what old cards are you getting rid of? Because that'd be cool to see.
I could tell you right now, I have a Wayne Gretzky Fleer. It's like a Pearson Award insert.
Okay.
That was actually, I remember when I pulled it, it was one of my most exciting moments as a kid. It was like a 1 in 100. It was like worth $100 in Beckett. And I had it in like a special case. I probably spent more money on the case than now I'm going to be able to sell the card for.
Really?
But like actually I did get a bid at $9.99 and that's where it's sitting right now. So we'll see. It was like this rare 1997 insert. It's actually cool because he's wearing a Blues jersey, but it has a Rangers logo on the card. So it's as if they because I guess he had already signed with the Rangers when they printed the card. So I don't know. But anyways, I listed that. I listed a Don Cherry rookie card.
Oh, that's kind of fun. Controversial, but fun.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. I don't know. I just kind of felt like I didn't want to have a Don Cherry card anymore now that I'm not a fan of him. But it's not in the best shape, but it's up to like $18. So we'll see what that ends up going for. And then I had some also another a rare insert Paul Correa that at the time I thought was valuable. And it probably in the Beckett's back in the day it said it was valuable. And now it's at like $250. So we'll see how much it actually goes for. So I'm just I'm just thinking just for fun. I'm just going to always keep listing some of my old cards until I'm through with those, and then I could just focus on these young guns that I'm more fascinated by.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, so this has been a blast. This hour just flies by. I feel like this has been over an hour now. I feel like we've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes.
We have. I know. I was looking going, wow, it just really covered a lot of great stuff and talked forever.
Yeah, we still haven't met. Oh, actually, we did. We were I was biking, and then I saw you going down the street. It makes you think, right? Like, because we actually live right near each other, but we've been talking to each other in the Keeping Carlson Facebook group like for years. But I never really knew what you looked like. Who knows how many times we've biked by each other and didn't realize. And now as soon as I talk to you, like
so many.
Yeah, and now that I know what you look like, that week I see you biking by. But anyways, I just say it's kind of fun that this person that I know that lives near me, we could chat for an hour and 15 minutes. The time just flies by. So if nothing else comes out of this podcast, someone knew I could talk to about hockey cards. But okay,
new hockey card friends. Yeah, yeah.
But okay, I think I'm ready to see what's in this pack. Man, this is very exciting.
So, I will open one pack, but because it's like a 1 in 4 chance, we might have to open more than one for this to be exciting.
Oh, okay. Well. Up to you. How many of them do you have?
I have a few because I was thinking like we can open a few on the podcast and just save the rest for the next podcast or whatever.
Okay, that could be like a fun just end of every show. We should end with like opening a pack.
Right.
Should we like have a thing? Okay, not for this time because we haven't thought it through yet. We should have something where the listeners could sort of like get in on this somehow.
Yeah.
Like maybe we pick. Oh, okay. How about this? We're on iTunes right now. And okay, it's gonna be something with like you giving us a 5-star review on iTunes, I think, and then like somehow then you get in on potentially getting a good card. Though I don't know if you'd want to give away if you pull him a car right now. I don't know if you're gonna want to give that away to listeners. So we'll think through, but stay tuned for what we're gonna do with Ryan's mystery pack openings. But this one is all for you, Ryan. So let's just see what you get in there.
I mean, like, so if they follow us on like every social media account and subscribe, like maybe that's cool.
Yeah. We'll talk through a prize.
Yeah. All right, let's do this thing. All right, so I'm going to try and do this on camera. Sid the Kid on the front.
Hey. Oh wait, that's the front. You mean the front of the
On the pack.
package?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
that's.
So, yeah, okay. I'm just making sure it doesn't like cut off the card. Okay, can you actually see that?
I'm gonna have to make this bigger. I got a lot of windows open here. Okay. It's a little bit blurry. It's a guy on Dallas. Who is that?
I'll just say the names. You'll know when it's a Young Guns. All right, so this is Tyler Seguin.
Hey.
Yay! Ryan Strome, big pull. Drew Doughty, and oh, there's an insert. So this is a Shooting Stars, and that is Austin Matthews. So,
Oh, that might be something.
yeah, so these Shooting Stars cards are actually pretty interesting. They all have different colored backgrounds. So this one's blue. There's some red ones. Um, and actually, these are some of the inserts that aren't $0. And definitely Matthews will be pretty cool. So I actually am gonna guess $4 maybe, but we'll have to look it up and check.
I'm seeing. You're not gonna like this. I'm seeing on September 6th a lot of 4 shooting stars, which included that Matthews one and Darlene and 2 other players, and it sold for $2.
$2. Okay, so maybe you need the red background one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it was a McKinnon red, Taves red, Darlene blue, and Matthews blue, and the whole thing sold for
$2.
$1.50.
Okay, so maybe nothing, but it's still a cool card. See, that's what you get with opening packs, right? Is like you get to see these inserts that you're not searching for on Google, and yeah, the rest of these are all your base cards.
Oh, you didn't pull a Young Guns.
No,
So who else is in there?
there's
Was that
only so this is, yeah, Robbie Thomas, Toivo Teravainen, and that and those cool
the green Canes jersey?
yeah, the Hartford jerseys. Who's this? DeBrusque and Shea Theodore.
I mean, that's a good. If we were playing fantasy, that would have been a nice pack for you. Some good players.
Yeah, if this was fantasy, that would be decent. But yeah, base cards.
Okay, well, it just means that there's a bit higher chance of getting Young Guns in the next pack.
It's
By
true.
the way, is there anything like that in a box? Is each pack completely independent of all the other packs in the box, or does Upper Deck try to include like a certain number of Young Guns in each box?
So on the outside of the box, they say that it's 1 in 4 packs, and that does not guarantee you anything. So you could open an entire box and get nothing. But from what I've seen, it's pretty accurate. So I kind of expect to get, like in a box of 24 cards, there'd be math 6 Young Guns,
Right.
right?
Well, I guess you would just think the more packs there are, the law of averages, I think it's called law of large numbers. I don't know. Like the more
even
you
out.
get, the more likely it is that it'll just go to the odds. It is
Yeah.
kind of crazy, this operation they have running. Like, how do they keep track? Because I guess, do they know how many packs they're going to print? I guess at the starts, they know how many of each card to print. And then do they have some machine that's like shuffling up all of these cards? I wonder if can you get 2 Young Guns in a pack? Is that even possible?
So there's only one, at least in these ones, there's only one thing inserted into each pack. So like there'll be one card in the middle of all the base cards, like the Matthews
Oh, you're
was.
guaranteed to get something that's not a base card, you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Well, I don't know if guaranteed, but if there is one, it'll be there.
Yeah. I guess it makes sense. They want to make it feel like a good
Yeah.
experience for the person opening the pack.
But it must be a machine that does it, because sometimes that card is backwards.
Okay. We need to one day get a Upper Deck like employee to come on the podcast. It'd be so fascinating to hear how they do all of this.
That would be
And
amazing.
I wonder if anyone's ever like printed a couple extra just for themselves. There must be some quality control there. I've also wondered like about the autographs back. Like Wayne Gretzky autographs are pretty valuable, right?
Yep.
But he's alive. Like if he was ever in a jam financially, could he just like spend a day like signing a bunch of cards and then all of a sudden increase his net worth? Because like,
Well,
I mean,
you mean like sign his own cards? Yeah. I mean, I guess technically. And yeah, he's alive. So, you know, Wayne Gretzky autographed Upper Deck cards come out every year. Like those are some inserts. So yeah, there's probably going to be more value in guys that don't sign as many cards.
right. I wonder if it would be cool if Beckett was able to authenticate if it's like a Gretzky signature from the 80s versus a Gretzky signature from this year. Like maybe he's changed his handwriting or something over time. You would think like
That
an
would be wild.
autograph, because yeah, you'd think like it would be more rare to get something he signed back in the day. But okay, maybe I'm asking for too much from these people, which when I'm already expressing skepticism that they could even authenticate an autograph at all. But
Yeah,
anyway, Ryan, this was fun. We're
this was great.
we're 2 episodes in to the Near Mint podcast. Both times I was thinking we should probably try to keep it to around 45 minutes, and both times has been an absolute failure. So I guess we'd love to get some feedback. Let us know what you thought of the show in general. Some of the segments, the length, like we're right now we're babies. Like we're open for any and all feedback of what we think we can do to make this podcast more appealing to you. And to hopefully people who aren't listening, because I can't imagine there's too many of you. So anyone listening right now, you're a special person, right? You're in on the ground floor.
Oh yeah.
I want to know, I want to hear from you just so I'll be able to remember and give you kudos one day when we're big. I want to like have like the big 10 like people that were with us from the very beginning. So you have to make yourself known, and you can do that in a lot of ways at this point. So tweet at us at Near Mint Hockey. We've got an Instagram also at Near Mint Hockey. Where we have an email, nearminthockey@gmail.com. So you should have a way to get in touch. Also, we'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast on whatever app you use. You should be able to search for it by now. If you search for Near Mint Hockey Card podcast, or maybe just Near Mint, you'll be able to find the podcast on Spotify or Apple, wherever you listen. We've got a YouTube channel, Near
Yeah.
Mint. Oh, we've got a website, nearminthockey.com, where you can also stream the episodes there. Nearminthockey.com/YouTube will take you to our YouTube channel, where you could find all of our video episodes, and Ryan's done some cool editing to get
Yeah.
an intro song and the whole thing. So it's very fancy. And then I guess the last thing we should mention, well, maybe for next week we should come up with the actual official dates for our game, right?
Yeah.
Our fantasy hockey cards game, where we're gonna start a competition with all the listeners who are interested in playing. And the cost for entry is like kind of up to you, but everyone gets $100 budget max of your own money, and we're gonna keep a spreadsheet. And anytime you buy a card that you decide you want it to be for the purposes of the game, you just send us the like a link or whatever, the proof of what you bought and for how much, and we're going to put it in the spreadsheet, and we're going to be keeping track all the way through until the end date of the game, and we'll see who was. And also you could sell cards, and we've written up all the rules over at nearminthockey.com/game, and we'll link to that in the show notes. And so it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, a way for us to just like compete against each other and see who can make the most money, or raise the value of their collection, both in terms of money and cards, the most in the next year. And once we kind of figure out a sign up deadline, then we could actually start figuring out like how many people are playing. And once we know how many people are playing, we'll come up with maybe like a $20 buy-in, and then the prize will be beyond just all the amazing profits you made, but an actual cool prize of maybe a fancy card, maybe a Matthews Young Guns, depending on how many people are playing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Or like a cool box of cards that could have a McDavid in it or something like that.
right, yeah, I guess we'll start. That'll be another fun part of the game, is we'll definitely make some sort of group chat, and we'll just talk about hockey cards all the time, bragging about our purchases, and also just chatting hockey cards. And then we could discuss in there also what we want the stakes to be. So another fun reason to play. So
Yeah, yeah. I actually think like engaging with everyone listening and talking about hockey cards is going to be one of the big perks of this. And this game will be such a good catalyst of just everyone talking about hockey cards, seeing what other people are doing, like buying and selling wise.
and we'll like learn from each other. Like we'll learn
Right.
from mistakes. We'll be able to see like, wow, I really blew it. I bought a Shea Theodore for $12, and then now it's worth $2. What was
Well,
I
yeah,
thinking?
yeah. Or like, look at this guy. He bought like 100 of this $1 card, and it worked out.
Yeah.
Although I guess
So
that's not in the rules, but
okay, so by next week, Ryan, let's make a commitment here. We're gonna make a Google form. We're gonna make a
yeah,
sign up form.
good
We're gonna
idea.
do all that stuff, and we're gonna come up with a sign up deadline and everything. So stay
Yeah,
tuned for that. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. But until I guess next week, yeah, thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back at you next week. Do we know the topic yet? We were thinking maybe of talking about events and how they
yeah.
affect values.
Yeah, so I think next week we'll talk about events. We'll be able to kind of analyze what happened in the playoffs and how values went up and down in the playoffs, and specifically focus in on the Lightning players who won the Stanley Cup. And then we've got the draft coming up. We've got free agency coming up. And then, at some point we're going to have a preseason and a season where those like young guys are going to be like the highlights of the league, right? So I think that's going to be super interesting to talk about, and we'll talk about like how you can prepare for that kind of thing, or how you can learn from what happened in the playoffs. And also drop us any questions you have about that, about things we talked about on this episode, or things that you want to learn in the hockey card world, because we're kind of just figuring out what we think is the most interesting, or things that we've learned, or
exactly. The mailbag is always open. So yeah, any question that you send us that you want on the show, if we think it's interesting, we'll definitely answer it on the show. You know, I was just thinking now, because Lafreniere doesn't have a card yet, right? Like, I guess when do those cards come out? The 2021 cards.
So it's kind of been a bit iffy because they didn't know when the draft was yet. So I don't actually remember what the exact date is. But actually, this is an interesting tidbit to end on. To become a Young Guns, you have to have played a game in the league. So
yeah, it's going to be a little while still.
It's it's going to be a bit,
because they need to take a picture of the guy wearing his team's jersey, and that with a Rangers jersey, I guess now we know. But then they have to print all these cards, and then they have to release it. So that'll be really fascinating. Like, when that set comes out, like, do you just go buy a Lafreniere right away? Is it like a company having an IPO where you just get that initial like strike price on the stock? Or do you or is that going to be a hype event where it's going to like have a huge surge, then go down a bit, and then slowly rise as he like has a good career? That'll be interesting to follow.
I guess we'll have to go look back at some of the hype number ones from the last few years, but no one's been hyped as much as this guy since McDavid.
But like, do we also, how do you do that? I still don't know the answer of how to actually look up the values from previous years. Do we have a way that we're going to do this yet? Or are we still looking for how we're going to do that?
Well, I think we'll have to dig into that on another show, because I don't have a great answer, but there's a couple tools that kind of like keep logs of eBay.
Okay, so if anyone has a tip, we'd obviously love to hear it. If you know a good way that we can search for what the value of a Panarin Young Guns card has been ever since 2016, I would be fascinated to be able to just see a graph. And if anyone wants to build that app, like with the data, I will be a $5 a month member to be able to look at a player, pick any player, and then see their total historical trend of values. That'd be amazing. But okay, we're rambling again. We could just talk for another hour, but we should probably go spend time with our loved ones. So nice chatting with you, Ryan. Thanks again, everyone. And we'll be back at you next week.